Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Loop API, take your first pay-in, and charge that customer for a subsequent payment. So to get started, you need a code which Loop will pass to you. I already made a code, so we'll paste it in here. We're going to call our entity Spotify, pass in an email address, and all of this information is just to set up the entity in the Loop system. Loop has this concept of payment types. What payment types are is basically defining the network and tokens that a entity is willing to accept. Entities can have child merchants underneath them. So you can think of an entity like a platform like eBay, and eBay can have many different merchants underneath. And every merchant can have their own configuration of payment types. So if the entity says, well, we're willing to support every single network and token that Loop supports, and then a subset of a merchant can say, okay, but I only want to accept money, let's say on Base and USDC. The important thing here too is you define a payout destination per network. And again, the same concept. If the payout destination is not defined at the merchant level, then it gets sent to the entity's payout destination, but the merchant can have their own separate payout destination. The payout destination accepts a wallet address. However, we have an off-ramp partner that merchants and entities can use so that instead of receiving crypto, at the end of the day, they can just receive fiat and not have to know anything about crypto. So to get started, we're going to do this on Sepolia because this is a demo environment. Let me grab my wallet address. And I'm going to say we're willing to accept USDC, USDT. And to make it easy, we allow you to just pass in the token symbol. If you're curious what the token symbols are, we have this list tokens endpoint that will tell you all of the default tokens that Loop accepts, their token address, their symbol, as well as on what network. We can always add in more tokens and networks. We just keep the list to the most popular ones for ease, and so it doesn't get overloaded. So I'm going to do those two networks, and that's it. So, the last thing to make sure is that you're on demo if you're going to use, if it's a demo code, and so we are, which is great. Yeah, awesome. So our entity got created. We now have an entity ID and an API key, which we'll need to save because you need it for every single other API call. By default, an entity is also a merchant in the system, so we also have our first merchant. So I'm going to save this information. If you wanted to, you can also configure webhooks, and the webhooks will be important when a pay-in occurs. We'll send you a webhook to tell you that the pay-in took place, or if a pay-in is scheduled, we'll send you end missed because the customer, for whatever reason, didn't have enough balance or didn't have enough approval. We'll also send you a webhook to let you know that it was missed and why it was missed. So the next thing we're going to do is use our Loop Connect component. This component can be embedded into any checkout page to make it very easy for a customer to connect their wallet and then pay with a given token. To instantiate the component, we need to put in that entity ID that we just got in the response. We can remove the merchant ID and we'll put in the API key. Okay. We'll set the environment to demo, and this sort of connect page is just for demo purposes. You can play around with it. It's linked in our docs under guides and components, and it allows you to see all the parameters that you can pass in. What this component does under the hood is that it's really calling some endpoints. So when a customer uses it to check out, we will create a customer. A customer comes with a customer reference ID. So if this is an external ID that you can pass in, if you're a payment platform or if you're a merchant that's using another payment platform, you can use this ID so that you can link them to your billing system. And then these concept of a payment method. So payment methods sort of pair up with payment types. A payment method, you can think of it as like a customer has a credit card and that credit card has a credit card number. So in this case, a customer has a wallet address and that wallet address is on a given network and for a particular token. And so when the customer uses the checkout widget behind the scene, we create a customer and then we create a payment method for that customer. And then lastly, we create the first pay-in. A pay-in is basically the rules around what you want to charge the customer, when, how much, if you're defining it in fiat or a token. So you could tell us charge them $10. We'll go, if it's a stable coin, we'll assume it's one-to-one. If it's not a stable coin, so let's say it's WETH, we'll go and look up the exchange rate at the moment we charge them and convert from the dollar amount to the crypto amount. Or you can just tell us the token directly. So you could say, hey, charge this customer 5 USDC. The bill date tells us obviously when to charge the customer. If you put a bill date 0, we'll charge them immediately. If you put a bill date in the future, we'll save the pay-in our backend. And then when the bill becomes due, we'll go attempt to charge the customer. And then we'll continue to try every 2 minutes, double checking that that customer has enough balance and allowance. Our default is at 7 days. We'll stop checking the customer's payment method and then we'll cancel the pay-in. That default can be adjusted, but just flagging it. Okay, so let's get started with the pay widget. We need to pass in the API key, correct, as well as the merchant ID or entity ID that we saved from the create entity call. Here. A version of this widget is available in our docs, under guides, under component. It links straight to this page. We're on our demo environment. Here you can see that these parameters match up to the parameters that are in our docs. We're going to pass in a USD amount. Let's do $5. These are in cents. The minimum authorized amount and suggested authorized amount, they're a very crypto thing, but it has ties to actually how debit cards in Europe work, where the payer is allowed to put parameters on how much a merchant can charge them. This is not a loop thing, it's just how blockchains work, and the term is called an authorization. So what we allow the component to do is you can set an amount that the customer must approve for them to get to the end of the checkout widget. Or you can set an amount that you're going to suggest that they approve, and then we'll enforce to make sure they have enough, at least for this first pay-in. I'm going to enforce an amount for a subsequent payment, so I'm going to put it in a bit higher than what this payment is. Because the way the authorization works is, so this is for $10, when the payment takes place, it'll be reduced by the amount that the payment was for. Again, this is a blockchain concept, not loop, but we give you the tools to make using it very easy. Here you can pass in any reference, perhaps to a billing system. As you saw on the pay-in screen, payment amounts can be in fiat or token. The widget right now assumes that your pay-in amount is always in the fiat. We're coming out with an updated version that will assume that will let you choose between passing in a dollar amount or passing in a token amount. So the last thing to point out is we allow for complete customization. You can, change the color of the text if you wanted. You can change the fonts, border, radius, basically make the widget itself match as similar to your UI as you want. So change some button colors and you can see it changes here. We have this event log so that you can see what's happening while you use the widget, and it's very helpful for development. So we passed in our information, we put in our API key, and let's make a payment. So I am just connecting my wallet. You can see on the Sepolia network, I have $7 in my wallet, and this pay-in is for $5. And so we'll go and pay it. You might not be able to see my MetaMask. What it's doing, it's having me sign that approval transaction. That's basically saying, hey, I'm allowing this merchant to charge my wallet, and they can charge my wallet up to $10. And so I gave that approval of $10. We're charging it $5. This response, again, is just for development purposes. You can hide this when you embed it on a checkout page. And this to show you the wallet that got charged, which was the one that you saw, and then the transaction hash, so proving the on-chain transaction. Okay, so we're going to come back here and check our customers and double check that the customer that just paid exists in our system. So we'll use the list customers call, have our API in entity ID. Awesome. So here is the customer that just paid. I know it's me because I know my wallet address. And you can see we paid on Sepolia, we paid in USDC. And then the other nice thing that we show is we give you a pre-authorization. What this tells you is what the wallet balance of USDC as well as authorization of USDC is. You can get the pre-auth by calling a payment method and say get payment method, or like we saw, you can just call it and get it for the customer. You could pass in the customer's customer ID and see what their wallet balance and authorization is, which is very helpful if you're going to charge the wallet again. You're not going to have the customer go through a checkout page, so this would be for a recurring payment. Or perhaps the customer has created a payment method on your site. They're doing a series of one-time payments. You could do this call to check that they have enough approval and authorization and not have them go through another checkout experience. You can have it sent to us as just a Web2 call. And so I'm going to show you how to do that directly here. This is using the pay-in endpoint, which is exactly the same endpoint that our component calls. So we're going to pass in information here. So here's the merchant ID. I'm going to charge $3 this time so that we can see that it's a different pay-in. Here's the amount in fiat. We're going to say bill them right now. The last thing we need to know is the customer ID of who that we want to charge. So let's go back to our customers endpoint. We can list our customers. We'll get that customer ID. I'm going to grab their payment method ID. Come to the pay-in. We'll say payment method ID. Here we go. Merchant ID is just the entity. The amount, $3. We're going to charge them in fiat right now. And there you go. So this transaction is pending. Obviously, the blockchain needs to mine the transaction. Should take perhaps a few minutes. And then if we call the list pay-in endpoint again, we'll see that this pending has changed to complete. In the response to this call, again, you can see that the pre-authorization information is given and the status code that tells you that this transaction is going to go through because right now the wallet does have enough money and approval. So let's go to list pay-ins and hopefully it's been mined. Oh, and there you go, it says complete. So that's it for this demo. I showed you how to create an entity, how to use the component to create a customer, a payment method, as well as take your first pay-in, and then how to charge that pay-in for a subsequent payment.